Welcome to the Heartbreak Chronicles, where every story is a raw reflection of life. Hit that subscribe button to stay tuned, give us a like to show your support, and share this episode with your friends. Don't forget to leave a comment and let us know what you think. Now, let's dive into today's story. My name is Ethan. I'm a gold medalist insurance broker in Manhattan's financial district. I have everything many people dream of in this never-ending city: a successful career, a great marriage, and a happy family. However, fate always likes to play jokes, and when you think you are in control, it will mercilessly push you into the abyss. My wife Olivia is a talented interior designer. We met in college and got married soon after graduation. In the first few years, we were like glue, as if we were the protagonists of a fairy tale. Olivia gave up her career to devote herself to her family and to taking care of our two children. Our lives may have seemed perfect, but in retrospect, it was probably just superficial harmony. As I moved up the career ladder, I worked longer and longer hours and came home later and later. I thought I was doing my duty as a husband and father by working hard and providing my family with excellent living conditions. Unbeknownst to me, I was pushing my marriage off a cliff step by step. Olivia began to grow quiet, and we communicated less and less. I thought it was just a normal part of married life and ignored her inner cries. She longed for change and to regain her dreams, but I didn't perceive this. I admit, I'm controlling. I want everything under my control, including Olivia's life. I organized everything for her and ignored her feelings. Our marriage gradually became a gilded cage that bound Olivia's freedom and passion. It was at this point that fate dropped a bombshell on our marriage. It was a sunny Sunday afternoon, and we attended a community gathering. While there, we met James, a financial investment advisor who had just moved in as a new neighbor. James was poised and well-spoken and quickly became the center of attention at the party. I noticed Olivia's gaze fall on him from time to time, and it was a gleam I hadn't seen in her eyes in a long time. I didn't care at the time and just treated it as a normal social interaction. In the days that followed, James was a regular presence in our lives. He would invite us to social events and sometimes even come to our house. While I am too busy with work and often don't have time for these social occasions, Olivia seems to enjoy them. I began to notice a change in Olivia. She began to dress herself with care and a smile on her face. I took it as a good thing, thinking she was finally coming out of her earlier slump. However, I didn't realize the danger signals hidden behind this change. I came home early one night to surprise Olivia. However, the moment I pushed open the door to my house, I saw a scene that broke my heart. Olivia and James were standing in the living room, the two of them leaning in close together as if they had just ended up in an intimate embrace. My heart skipped a beat and a chill ran up from my feet. I forced myself to stay calm, pretended I didn't see anything, and said hello to them. James quickly excused himself and left while Olivia excused herself to go to the kitchen to prepare dinner. At that moment, I felt my world begin to crumble. I began to wonder if I really knew Olivia and if I was really giving her the life she wanted. I started looking back at our marriage and trying to figure out what was wrong. Over the next few days, I began to watch Olivia's every move closely. I noticed that she often received text messages with an involuntary smile on her face. She started going out a lot, justifying it by attending design classes or meeting up with friends. I knew that our marriage had gone over a cliff. I was in an agonizing struggle. On the one hand, I loved Olivia and didn't want to lose her. On the other hand, my self-esteem was badly bruised and I was filled with a sense of anger and betrayal. I began to wonder if I should just confront Olivia or continue to observe in secret and gather more evidence. In the process, I realized that I had neglected my marriage. I used to think it was enough to provide a superior material life, but I neglected Olivia's emotional needs. I began to reflect on my behavior and think about how to save the marriage. However, things didn't get better. I've noticed that Olivia and James are getting in touch more and more. Sometimes I would stumble upon them walking together in a cafe or a park. My heart wrenches every time I see a scene like this. I began to become anxious and paranoid. My performance at work suffered. I couldn't concentrate and often made small mistakes. My coworkers noticed my abnormality, but I didn't confide in anyone. I kept all the pain inside and remained the same successful, confident insurance agent on the surface. Late at night, I often tossed and turned, thinking about how to save the marriage. I thought about communicating directly with Olivia and confessing my feelings and concerns. But every time I muster up the courage, I see the happy smile on her face and I flinch again. I'm afraid to face the truth, afraid to lose this woman I love so much. Just as I was hesitating, fate dealt me another blow. It was a sunny Saturday, and I was supposed to be at the kids' soccer game with Olivia. But at the last minute, I received a call from an important client and had to rush to the office to take care of an urgent matter. By the time I finished my work and hurried to the stadium, the game was over. In the distance, I see Olivia and James standing together. They are talking and laughing with the kids. At that moment, I felt completely excluded from the family. I realized that if I didn't take action, I could lose my family forever. It was at that moment that I made up my mind that I was going to save the marriage, no matter how it turned out. I'm going to win back Olivia's heart and rebuild the trust and love between us. But I also knew that it was going to be an uphill battle that would require all my hard work and ingenuity. The lights of Manhattan were still shining brightly, but I was plunged into a darkness I had never known before. I stand at a crossroads, wondering where the future will lead me. All I knew was that I had to make a change for the sake of my family and for the sake of Olivia, whom I loved so much. I can't afford to lose this game. As time went on, I became more and more convinced that there was an inappropriate relationship between Olivia and James. My heart was filled with anger and a sense of betrayal, but I decided not to move and to gather evidence in secret. I'm an insurance broker and I know the importance of evidence. I started watching Olivia's every move closely. I installed home security cameras, claiming it was for security reasons. I checked her cell phone bill and noticed that a certain number appeared with unusual frequency. I even hired a private investigator to follow her whereabouts. I was careful at every step, not wanting to spook anyone. In the process, I found myself becoming a stranger. I started lying to Olivia, making up all kinds of reasons to explain my behavior. I hate being like this, but I tell myself it's necessary. I need the truth. I need proof. In the meantime, I started preparing for a possible divorce. I quietly transferred some of the joint property and opened secret accounts. I researched a lot of information about divorce laws to make sure I had the upper hand in a possible legal battle. I know these behaviors are morally controversial, but I can't help myself. I felt betrayed, cheated, and I wanted revenge. I want Olivia to feel the pain I'm going through. However, in this game of lies and deception, I neglected the most important thing of all, our children. They begin to notice a change in the family atmosphere and become silent. I tried to hide it, but kids are always more sensitive than we think. One night, my daughter Emma came into my study. She asked me, "Daddy, do you and Mommy not love each other anymore?" The question pierced my heart like a sharp blade. I realized that while I was busy gathering evidence and plotting revenge, my family was falling apart. I tried to communicate with Olivia in hopes of saving our marriage. But every conversation ended in an argument. The gulf between us grew wider, and I felt powerless to change things. Olivia seems to have sensed something as well. She became more cautious and began deleting messages from her phone and clearing her browser history more frequently. These behaviors only further confirm my suspicions. During this time, my performance at work has also suffered. I started making little mistakes and missing some important meetings. My supervisor noticed this and gave me a warning. I know I need to pull myself together, but I can't focus. I started thinking about how I would face divorce if it did come to that. Will I lose my child? Will I lose everything I've worked so hard for? These thoughts keep me up at night. Meanwhile, Olivia seems to be in a strange kind of peace. She began to focus more on herself and restarted her design work. I don't know if this means she has made a decision and is ready to end our marriage. One day I stumbled upon Olivia's diary. I know it's an invasion of privacy to go through it, but I can't help myself. In the journal, I read about Olivia's disappointment in our marriage, her devotion to James, and her internal struggle. After reading the diary, I felt both anger and heartache. I realized that our marital problems were far more complicated than I thought. It's not just about betrayal. It's about the disappointment and resentment we've both built up over the years. I began to look back on our marriage. I think of how sweet we were when we first got married and the joy we felt when our children were born. I also remembered the days when I neglected my family for work and the dwindling communication and understanding between us. I realized that I was also responsible. I ignored Olivia's needs and prioritized work over family. I took our marriage for granted and didn't put the effort into maintaining it that I should have. This realization sent me into a deep self-loathing. I began to wonder if I could have avoided the current situation if I had realized these problems earlier. Could I have stopped Olivia from seeking an affair if I had been more concerned about her feelings? However, these self-doubts did not alleviate my anger and sense of betrayal. I still can't forgive Olivia for her betrayal. I felt cheated, betrayed, and treated like a fool. In the midst of these mixed emotions, I continued to gather evidence in preparation for a possible divorce. I know it can be an ugly battle, but I'm ready for it. One day, I finally shot the decisive evidence. It was a picture of Olivia and James kissing in front of an upscale hotel. The moment I saw this photo, I felt a wave of vertigo. Despite the many suspicions I already had, the truth still eluded me. I locked myself in my study and stared at that picture for a long time. I was filled with conflicting emotions: anger, sadness, despair, and a hint of relief. At least now I know the truth and don't have to live in doubt and uncertainty. I started thinking about what to do next. Should we confront Olivia immediately or continue to gather more evidence? Should we file for divorce immediately or give our marriage one last chance? Just as I was hesitating, I heard Olivia's voice. She called my name from downstairs with a hint of unease in her voice. I took a deep breath, hid the photo, and walked out of the den. I know that from this moment on, our lives will change drastically. No matter what I decide, we can't go back. Our marriages, our families, will be severely tested. As I walk down the stairs, I see Olivia standing in the center of the living room with mixed emotions in her eyes. In that moment, I realize that we will all pay for our choices. The price of lies, the price of betrayal, the price of neglect. We all have responsibilities. We've all made mistakes. But now we must face those mistakes and suffer the consequences. Regardless of the outcome, I know it's going to be a tough ride. Standing on the stairs, looking at Olivia, I made my decision. I'll confront her, but not now. I need more time to prepare to make sure I can handle the situation in the most favorable way. I walk down the stairs and force myself to ask, "What's wrong, honey?" Olivia looks at me, hesitates, and then says, "Ethan, we need to talk." I nodded, knowing in my heart that a storm was coming. But this time, I'm ready. No matter what happens, I will protect myself and my children. As for our marriage, only time will tell. That night's conversation became the turning point in our marriage. Olivia confessed her relationship with James, and while she insisted it was just a momentary lapse, there was no quelling the anger in me. Our arguments continued late into the night and ended in heavy silence. The next morning, we all acted as if nothing had happened, prepared breakfast for the kids, and sent them off to school. But we both knew that our marriage had come to an end. I started working on the divorce proceedings. I contacted the best divorce attorney in town and briefed her in detail. The lawyer gave me an appreciative look when I showed the evidence I had gathered. "Ethan, you've done a great job," she said, "and the evidence is very favorable to us." Over the next few weeks, we began to develop a detailed litigation strategy. We decided to file for divorce at the most opportune time to make sure I could get the most out of it. At the same time, I began to alienate Olivia. I stopped caring about her schedule and stopped asking her how she felt. I knew it might hurt the kids, but I couldn't control my resentment. Olivia seems to have realized something. She started staying home more and trying to repair our relationship. She suggested we see a marriage counselor, but I just coldly refused. In my opinion, it's too late. Finally, on a calm weekend morning, I decided to show my cards. The kids went to their grandparents' house, and it was just Olivia and I in the house. "Olivia," I said calmly, "I want a divorce." She froze, then began to cry. She pleaded with me to give her another chance, saying she would change and be a better wife. But my heart is cold. "It's too late," I said. "I already know everything." About James, about your affair. I pulled out those photos and evidence. Olivia's face turned instantly pale. She tried to explain, but I didn't want to hear it. The lawyer will be in touch, I said, turning to leave the room. The next few days were a nightmare. We began a long and painful divorce proceeding. My attorney relentlessly exploited every opportunity to paint Olivia as an unfaithful wife and an unfit mother. Our children are caught in this storm. Emma and Lucas start to become quiet and their grades begin to slip. The school counselor suggested we put the dispute aside for a while for the sake of the kids, but there was no turning back for me. In court, my lawyer showed all the evidence I had gathered. Olivia's infidelity, her lavish spending, all the details of her child neglect. Olivia sits at the defense table looking old and tired. I would have thought that seeing her like this would have given me satisfaction, but in reality, all I felt was a deep emptiness. The trial lasted several months. During that time, our private lives were put on public display in the courtroom to be judged by judge and jury. I saw Olivia crying on the witness stand. I saw her lawyers trying to defend her, but none of it could shake my resolve. Finally, the court rendered its judgment. I won primary custody of the kids, got the house and most of the property. Olivia received only limited visitation rights and a small amount of alimony. When the judge announced the verdict, I saw Olivia break down. She dropped into a chair and wept silently. At that moment, I felt a twinge of regret, but I quickly suppressed the feeling. After leaving the courtroom, I tried to explain the situation to the kids. Emma, my youngest daughter, looked at me with eyes full of resentment. "You won, Daddy," she said coldly, "but you lost us." The words pierced my heart like a sharp blade. I realized that while I was busy getting back at Olivia, I was also hurting the people I love the most. Over the next few days, I began to reorganize our lives. I hired a domestic helper to take care of the kids and threw myself into work to try to escape the emptiness inside. Olivia moved out of our house and rented a small apartment. I could see the pain and remorse in her eyes every time she came to pick up the kids, but I told myself that this was the punishment she deserved. However, as time went on, I began to question my decision. The kids became more and more rebellious and often argued with me. Emma even starts asking to live with Olivia. My work has suffered as well. I started making mistakes and lost my former sharpness. My supervisor noticed this and gave me a warning. One night, as I sat alone in our former home, I suddenly realized how hollow my victory was. I won the lawsuit and kept the property, but I lost the most important thing of all, my family. I started to think back to the good times I had with Olivia. Our first date, our wedding, the moment the kids were born. These memories are killing me. I tried to communicate with Olivia in hopes of creating a better environment for the kids, but every meeting is fraught with awkwardness and discomfort. The gulf between us seemed unbridgeable. The kids aren't getting any better. Lucas started skipping class and Emma completely ignored me. I tried to talk to them, but they always shut themselves in their rooms and refused to communicate with me. One day, I received an email from Olivia. She writes that she got a new job and is moving to another city. She asked me to allow the kids to move with her, at least for the summer. I felt a wave of panic when I saw the email. Even though I won custody, I knew I was losing my children. I began to wonder if my victory was worth such a price. I decided to meet Olivia. We met at a cafe, which is where we always go on dates. When I saw her walk in, I was surprised to see that she looked more beautiful than ever. Life after divorce seems to have given her a new vigor. We talked for a long time about the past, about the present, about the future of the children. For the first time in the conversation, I really understood how Olivia felt and why she made the choices she did. "I'm so sorry, Ethan," she said, tears in her eyes. "I know I've hurt you and our family, but I hope we can let go of the past for the sake of our children." It was a strange relief to hear those words. I realized that I had been masking my pain with anger and revenge. But now, in the face of Olivia's honesty, I feel like I can let go of some things too. "I'm sorry too," I said. "I should have been more understanding and given our marriage a chance. But I chose the worst possible way to handle this." We reached a new agreement. The kids can move to the new city with Olivia over the summer, but will come back to live with me in the middle of the semester. It's not a perfect solution, but it's the best we could come up with. As I left the cafe, I felt a strange sense of calm. I know there is a long road ahead, and we still have a lot of problems to solve. But at least, we took the first step. That night, I told the kids about my conversation with Olivia. They looked relieved and even gave me a hug. At that moment, I felt like for the first time in years, we were like a real family again. Lying in bed, I contemplated the changes this divorce has brought to all of us. I won the lawsuit, but at great cost. I lost my wife, almost lost my children, and lost my respect for myself. But perhaps it is through this painful experience that each of us learns a valuable lesson about love, about forgiveness, about what family really means. The bells of judgment have rung, but life goes on. I know that there is a long road ahead, but I am ready to face new challenges. This time, I'll try to be a better man, a better father. Because now I realize that the real victory is not in the courtroom, but in how we rebuild our lives and repair our broken relationships. It will be a long and difficult process, but I believe that if we work hard, we will eventually find the happiness that belongs to us. Life after divorce wasn't as easy as I thought it would be. Even though I won my case, kept most of my property, and gained primary custody of my children, I felt more empty and alone than I had ever felt before. My big house seems empty now, less Olivia's presence, less the laughter we used to have. Every night, as I lay alone in that big bed, I think about the time we used to spend together. Work became my refuge from reality. I buried myself in endless paperwork and meetings trying to fill the emptiness inside. My coworkers praised me for my dedication, but only I knew that it was just my way of hiding my inner pain. The kids aren't getting any better. Emma and Lucas are living with me, but the distance between us is growing. They no longer share their lives with me like they used to, and our conversations have become short and raw. One day, when I tried to talk to Emma, she coldly said, "Daddy, you won the case, but you lost our hearts." That statement was like a hammer blow that made me realize that in my quest to win, I had lost sight of what was most important. I began to reflect on my behavior. Was I so obsessed with punishing Olivia that I lost sight of the kids' feelings? Am I being too selfish, thinking only of my own pain and ignoring the needs of my family? This reflection pained me, but it also made me determined to make a difference. I started trying to repair my relationship with my kids. I cut back on my work hours and began to be more involved in their lives. I went to their soccer games, attended their PTA meetings, and even learned to bake their favorite chocolate chip cookies. Slowly, I felt the children begin to accept me. Emma stopped avoiding me and Lucas started sharing with me interesting things about his school. These small improvements gave me hope and made me believe that there was still a chance of salvaging our relationship. Meanwhile, Olivia's life seems to be on track. Through the kids, I learned that she had found a new job and was starting to get back into her design career. Every time the kids come home from her, they are excited to share with me how she is doing. At first, hearing this news made me feel a twinge of displeasure. I used to want to see her live a less than ideal life after the divorce, but now, I find myself starting to feel happy for her. The feeling surprised me and made me realize that I may finally be starting to let go of past resentments. One day, Emma offers to live with Olivia. The request made me panic, but I forced myself to calm down and think hard about the issue. I realized that if I truly love my child, I should consider what is best for her, not what is best for me. After much deliberation, I agreed to Emma's request. When I told her about the decision, she gave me a big hug, the first time she had offered to hug me since our divorce. At that moment, I felt the walls between us finally begin to melt. As time went on, my relationship with Olivia began to ease. Instead of being a hostile ex-couple, we began to work together as two adults for the benefit of our children. We started communicating regularly about the kids and even attended their school events together on occasion. In the process, I began to reacquaint myself with Olivia. I have seen her change. She has become more confident and independent. I realized that maybe the divorce was a relief for her, a chance to rediscover herself. This realization is both comforting and saddening to me. It is comforting to know that we are all growing in this process. It is sad that we need to go through such a painful separation to get to this state. 5 years have passed and my life is getting on track. I learned how to be a single father and how to balance work and family life. Children also grow up, and begin to understand the complexities of the adult world. One day, I received an unexpected invitation. Lucas had a high school graduation to attend, and he wanted Olivia and I to come along. The request made me feel apprehensive, but I agreed. On graduation day, Olivia and I sat in the audience and watched our son walk up to the stage in his bachelor's degree to receive his diploma. In that moment, I felt an overwhelming sense of pride and a tinge of regret. I think of all the times we missed, the happy moments we could have shared together. After the ceremony, the three of us had dinner together. It was the first time we had dined together as a family since our divorce. The atmosphere was a little awkward, but as the conversation progressed, we all relaxed. Watching Olivia and Lucas talking and laughing, I suddenly realized that although we are no longer a couple, we will always be a family. The children we raise together will always be the link that binds us. After dinner, while Lucas went to celebrate with his friends, Olivia and I took a walk together. We talked about the past, the present, and the future. "Ethan," Olivia said suddenly, "I'm so sorry for everything I've done." I looked into her eyes and saw genuine remorse and softness. I took a deep breath and said, "I'm sorry too, Olivia. I could have handled it better." We smiled at each other and both felt a relief that had been missing for a long time. We all understand that past hurts can't be completely erased, but we can choose to forgive and move on. On the way home, I started thinking about my life. I used to think that winning a divorce case was a victory, but now I realize that the real victory is learning to forgive, learning to let go, and learning to start over. I remembered the resentful and vindictive self I had been, the one who had gone out of his way to hurt his children to punish his wife. I'm ashamed of that self, but I'm also proud of who I am now. I learned to grow and change. The next morning, I called Emma. We had a long conversation about her college life and her future plans. At the end of the call, she said, "Daddy, I'm so proud of you." That statement brought tears to my eyes. I knew that I was finally doing something right. Over the next few days, I began to re-examine my life. I realized that I had been working to fill the emptiness inside me, but it wasn't a permanent solution. I need to find what really makes me happy. I started trying new hobbies and meeting new people. I attended a single-parent support group where I met many people with similar experiences to mine. We share stories and support each other, which makes me feel less alone. I'm also starting to think about starting a relationship again. Although I was still terrified of love, I knew that I couldn't let the past hang over me forever. One day, at a company party, I met a lady named Sarah. She was a single mom, and we quickly realized we had a lot in common with each other. We started dating, and slowly, I felt my heart begin to beat again. I'm careful how I run this new relationship for fear of repeating my mistakes. But Sarah's understanding and patience allowed me to gradually let my guard down. I learned to communicate, I learned to listen, I learned to compromise, all skills I had neglected in my last marriage. I met Olivia again 2 years later at Lucas College graduation. This time, we both brought our respective new partners. It was a heartfelt pleasure to see her happy. After the ceremony, the four of us adults had dinner with Lucas. The atmosphere was relaxed and full of laughter. Watching this scene, I suddenly realized that this is what I've been looking for. Not a perfect family, but a mutually understanding and supportive relationship. When I got home in the evening, I sat on my balcony and reflected on the years. I remembered the painful divorce, the anger and vindictiveness I had felt, and how I had hurt those closest to me. But I also remembered how I climbed out of that low point, how I learned to forgive, how I reestablished my relationship with my children, and how I found new happiness. I realized that life is not black and white. Victory and defeat, happiness and pain are often intertwined. What matters is how we deal with these experiences, how we learn and grow from them. I used to think that winning a divorce case was a victory, but now I know that the real victory is to be able to keep a good heart, still believe in love, and still face life bravely after all the storms. I took a deep breath and felt the peace of the night. I know that there is a long road ahead of me and many more challenges await. But this time, I'm ready. Because I realize that the greatest victory in life is learning how to truly live. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have a story to share about your own or someone else's experience, please feel free to contact me. Take care.